since August 30th, and that's concerning. I was at this point starting to get some legitimate fear that he was not going to play, but Matt LaFleur said that he expects him to play. Said he doesn't really need snaps in practice to play, which I fully agree with. I think I've said it on this show before, if not on Twitter, but David Bakhtiari is David Bakhtiari. Like, if he could practice, sure, that would be great. It would be nice, but he does not need to practice. He could go out there on Sunday with no practice and be just fine. So I'm not worried about that. I don't care. I mean, again, would it be better if he practiced? Sure. But I'm not losing sleep if he does not practice. As long as he's playing on Sunday, I'm good. So moving on from that was really all the injury news. Dontavian Wicks was a full participant, so that's good. Expect about their Sunday. And for the people who are into fantasy, which I expect many are, with the Watson injury, I think Jayden Reed, if you're playing in a 3-wide receiver league, where you're just kind of thin at receiver, Romeo Doubs, I think for sure is startable at this point. Jayden Reed is someone to consider. And if you are if you're thin at tight end and you have Luke Musgrave and your other guy either isn't that great or has a tough matchup, we have high hopes for him as it is. But if Christian Watson's not playing, you would have to imagine he's more involved, especially in the red zone, considering how big he is. So that's basically the fantasy impact for Watson. But I guess you could also say Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon get a bit of a spike because they'll probably rely more on the run. And yeah, so Aaron Jones will probably catch some more passes, which is always great. Chris, appreciate you pulling through. You got to do it. Got to get through it. Iowa Joe, this is where most of the cool kids hang out, especially with Zach and Jen are here. Then it's like a full crew. Today, I'm doing my best to, bring their best qualities, but I'm doing what I can. So moving on from the news and some fantasy stuff, we'll get to record prediction in a minute, but let's do some hot takes. And starting off with one that, I guess it's a hot take, but I've said it multiple times already this offseason, so it might not be that hot. But Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson both go over 1,000 receiving yards this year. Obviously, they need to be healthy, so that will be a caveat. Watson can miss a game and get that. He could even miss a couple games, but they need to play the bulk of the season for that to be possible. But assuming that happens, I think Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs both go over 1,000 yards. Another one I was thinking about, and I think with Rashawn, I was nervous originally because Rashawn Gary, we weren't sure what his status was going to be, but now that he's back, I think there's no reason why he can't set a career high in sacks this year, going in the 13 to 15 range, which, I just think there's no reason why this should not be his breakout year. Yes, there might be, he'll be on a bit of a pitch count in the beginning. He'll have to knock off some rust, but he has just been so dominant in practice. That's just who he is, as Rashawn Gary. So I am really, really excited for what he can do this year. But I think potentially my hottest take, and it might be a little piggyback off of what Zach said a couple weeks ago. Ben, thank you. Always appreciate you coming in. But Luke Musgrave, I think all Packer fans are extremely excited about him, considering what the tight end has been for this team for the last decade. And I especially, I was really, really into Luke Musgrave before the draft. The fact that they got him surprised me and very much excited me. And I think this year, Zach, to steal what Zach said, but basically what I'm thinking was that, he will shatter, is what Zach said. He will change the perception of what you think of rookie tight ends. And I agree with that. I think considering the way this offense wants to run and how involved he's been in preseason and in training camp, especially in practice, I think 7 or 8 touchdowns is very much in range. Like the yardage and the receptions, that can be hard depending on how much they throw. Watson, Doubs are some options there. And I think he for sure can score a good amount of touchdowns. But I also think we're just going to see him get so many targets week after week because Jordan Love loves targeting in the middle. The guy's huge. He has great hands. He's incredibly fast. So I think we see a 700-800 yard season with 7 or 8 touchdowns, which is pretty much unheard of for rookie tight ends. I believe it's been over a decade since a rookie tight end has topped like 650 yards. So it would be a lot for him to do that. But I think it's definitely possible considering how talented he is. And Chris, that call may just come, and you got to stay ready. Can vouch. Oh yeah, Mina. He does have a lot of similarities to Mina Kimes, Ben. That's a very good call. So for hot takes, it's usually better when you can have a bit of a discussion. Things get a bit more heated in that situation. But ooh, that was a loud bang. But all right, so let's just move on, because if I just go through a bunch of hot takes on my own, it'll be no one for me to tell me I'm an idiot. Unless you guys want to tell me I'm an idiot in the chat, which I'm sure you already have. But let's just get to our record prediction and get on out of here and enjoy tonight's game, by the way. Chiefs Lions, very excited. It sucks that Travis Kelce's not playing, but is what it is. Hopefully the Chiefs still win. But yeah, so the Packers, of course, I feel like every year they start off always on the road, but this year, 2 games on the road, which is really nice. At the Bears, week 1. This is, I said it the other day on Twitter, I feel like it is much bigger than just another week 1 game. It is, kind of like the redefining of what this rivalry could be. And if Jordan Love goes out there and spanks the Bears, it is going to be glorious. And we will have visions of what the last 30 years have been, which will be very nice. But if it goes poorly and Love does not play that well and the Packers lose this game, it's only 1 game, but it will be more than just a game in terms of the way momentum can start to shift and the belief on the Bears side, which, we never want to see. And they really shouldn't have any belief, considering they're the Bears. And going off that, I do think the Packers get the win on the road. Christian Watson not playing makes me makes me a bit uneasy, but I just think the Packers are more talented. It's not even about Love, Fields, all that. The Packers have more talent top to bottom on the roster. And as young as the team is in key spots, there's some more experience on the Packers side. And I just think they pound the run. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, big games. I think Luke Musgrave also very involved. Christian Watson doesn't play. Samori Toure definitely could end up having, a pretty big game, at least in terms of snaps. We'll see how many targets he gets. Chris, 27-24. I assume that is in favor of the Packers. I don't have a score prediction for all these games, but I guess for week 1, I will give one. I think it'll be a little less than that. I think it'll be something in the range of 23-16 Packers, with a strong second half by the defense. Justin Fields, maybe gets loose once or twice, but doesn't kill us, and get out of week 1 with the win. And now let's move on to, the rest of the schedule. Week 2 at the Falcons. Not a very good team. A young team with some good talent, but I think the Packers can go into Atlanta and win. It's not an easy place to play, but if they could beat the Bears in Chicago, I think they could beat the Falcons in Atlanta. Week 3, home opener against the Saints. It's tough because it's the home opener, and I want to just say they're going to win because it's the home opener, but the Saints are, I think, an underrated team. They're a talented team. We know they have a good defense. They always have a good defense. And Derek Carr may not be great. He may not be a Pro Bowler. He may not be what he was a few years ago, but he's an upgrade over what they had last year. And I think the Saints, in a very close game, get the win in Lambeau. So Packers now at 2-1. Following week, again in Lambeau Field against the Lions. The Lions are a different team than we've seen them be for most of our lives, or at least most of my life. And I think the Lions come into Green Bay week 4 and get the win. So, and that's in prime time. I believe it's Thursday night. So the Packers, 2-2 at this point, go on the road to Vegas against the Raiders and get the win against Devontae Adams and the Raiders. Didn't even think of that. But I don't believe in the Raiders. Last year they didn't have a great year, but I feel like Josh Jacobs' season was kind of fluky, and I do not think they will get the win. Moving on to the following week, another game on the road in Denver. Not an easy place to play, but the Packers, since 2014, and we won't go into that, but since then, the Packers have had Russell Wilson's number. They beat him repeatedly and sometimes in big fashion, which is always fun to see. And also, I just don't believe in Wilson and Sean Payton turning it around. No. So I'm saying the Packers go into Denver, get the win. Currently now at 4-2, and they're going to go on a bit of a winning streak here. Back at home against the Vikings. I think they're going to end up splitting this series. So they're going to win the one in Green Bay. The Vikings, they're a good team. I mean, I think they can end up making the playoffs. I think some people are even more down on the Vikings than I am. But the Packers in Green Bay, they kicked their ass last year. Obviously, different situation, but I think they can beat the Vikings at home. Follow that up with the Rams, a team that I think is really, I mean, in the bottom third of the league, and that might be being generous, even if Matt Stafford's healthy. So they get the win at home. So they just went on a 4-game win streak. They sit at 6-2, and now the schedule starts to get a little more serious. They go to Pittsburgh, formerly Heinz Field. I don't know what it is now. It's like a weird name, but also the fact that it's not Heinz Field anymore kind of bothers me. Puka Ben, I almost kind of hope this guy ends up being good just because of how much crap you're talking about him. It would be fun. And he has a fun name, Puka Nacua, Rams receiver. Could be relevant while Cooper Kupp is out. We will see. But yeah, so they go to Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh, they might be a little bit overhyped this year, in my opinion, but I do think they're a solid team, and I think they end up winning at home against the Packers in Pittsburgh. And then follow that, the Packers play the Chargers back in Green Bay. Yeah, Acrisure. Thank you, Chris. As I said, an interesting name. I assume it's a company of some kind, but I just don't like it. I think Heinz was very fun. The Chargers, one of my favorite teams in the NFL this year. I think they can compete very deep in the AFC, maybe get to the championship game. I think they're maybe a year away from getting to the Super Bowl, but I think their offense is going to be a little bit too high-powered, and they will beat the Packers in Green Bay, which brings the Packers now to 6-4. They go on the road to Detroit and get revenge for Week 4 loss in Green Bay, and maybe pulling off, in some people's opinions, an upset in Detroit, getting the win, going to 7-4 before coming back home to face the former, or reigning, I should say, Super Bowl champion Chiefs, which, I mean, Jordan Love has played the Chiefs, and you know what? They only lost by 7 points. It was a close game, and he basically outperformed Patrick Mahomes, but I think it would be a little optimistic to put anything there other than an L. So they're going to be now at 7-5. Follow that up with a road trip to New York against the Giants, a team they should have beat last year in London, had a lead at halftime, blew the game, extremely frustrating, and basically set the whole season to crap. So screw the Giants. And unfortunately, I think they're a solid team, especially defensively. I don't really think Daniel Jones for sure is worth that contract, but I think they do enough to win a close game in New York and beat the Packers. So now we are at 7-6, I believe. Go back home against the Bucs in December. Baker Mayfield, I mean, I just don't think the Bucs are. I don't think they're going to be atrocious, but I think the Packers beat the Bucs at home and Baker Mayfield in December with relative ease. Follow that up with a road trip to Carolina against Bryce Young and the Panthers. I don't know. I don't think I'm a believer in Bryce Young. I think he might just be a little too small, but we'll see. But for sure, as a rookie, I don't think they're going to be a great team. I think the Packers go into Carolina, not the easiest place to play, but they go in and get the win. And then 2 more games. So right now they're sitting at 9-6. They travel to Minnesota, and as I mentioned earlier, kind of gave that away. I think they lose the one in Minnesota, split the season series. Tough place to play. They've notoriously been pretty bad there. And I think they lose that one, putting them at 9-7, following that up with a season-ending game against the Bears, Week 18 in Lambeau Field, which of course they win because we just don't lose to the Bears. It doesn't happen. We're 8-0 over the last 8. It's going to be 10-0 by the end of the season, which brings the Packers to an overall record of 10-7, which I believe will be good enough to win the NFC North. They will get into the playoffs, and I really don't want to dive too much further from there, mostly because, I mean, I don't expect them to win the NFC. I don't think that's a wild thing to say. But, you know, depending on what the matchup could be in the first round, maybe they could win a playoff game. You know, well, who knows? But I do think they go 10-7, win the NFC North. And more importantly than anything, Jordan Love has the season that fans want to see in terms of believing that this is going to be the future, that this is our franchise quarterback. Because even if you want to flip it and go 7-10, even if you want to go 6-11, anything less than 6 would potentially be concerning. But more important than any record this year is knowing going into next year and the future that Jordan Love is the guy. Because again, unless Jordan Love comes out and is the next, elite all-star, Pro Bowl quarterback right away, I don't think this team's competing for a Super Bowl, and that's fine. So more importantly, just show us that you're the guy. Aaron Rodgers went 6-10 his first year as a starter, but there was a lot of optimism going into 2009 because of what he showed. So that's the most important thing. A good season out of Love, progression week after week, not making the same mistake twice, playing mistake-free football, not turning it over. That's what's going to be most important for me, more than a record. So everyone, I know this was a different show than usual, but I appreciate whoever tuned in and listened to me ramble on for much longer than I thought I would have. So I'm sorry about that. Listening to me talk for 18 consecutive minutes is pretty not cool on my part. So I'm going to go. But before we do, as you see at the bottom of the screen, follow the show on Twitter or X, but I'm not actually going to say that, at the @pack_show. And you know what? I will plug my good friends, even though they abandoned me. No, they didn't. But follow Zach and Jen on Twitter. Zach at It's Zachary J. Jen at Big Mac _4. You can find me at Book of Eli _NFL. Everyone, enjoy tonight. Chris, Ben, you guys are the best. Very much appreciate you joining me on this journey. But yeah, enjoy the game tonight. Eat some food, drink a beer, or don't. Do whatever the hell you want. I really don't care. But just have a good time is most importantly. So hopefully we will see you all next week at 1-0, ready to preview the Packers-Falcons. Everyone, see you next time. Go Pack, go.